Just sit there and make sure no one steals anything. We might get some early trick-or-treaters, but just keep the door locked. We get all sorts this time of year. Everything locks automatically, though. Keys are in the safe. I'll see you in the morning.
Welcome to Merlehaven's Unsolved Mysteries. Tonight, we'll be trying to solve the murder of Merlehaven's most famous artist, Mordechai Gray, brutally murdered in his loft last year. On the night of All Hallows Eve, Gray had been painting 6 portraitures at the time. They were all suspects according to Justice Hoon, but Hoon was unable to convict any of them. Could there still be a killer on the loose? Was it Dominique Serron, the lush burlesque dancer? Or Otto Pipistrel, our now famously cancelled ventriloquist? Or perhaps Lilith Rendell, the island's only undertaker? Gray was also painting Sunday Finch, our twinless tennis star, Xavier Hahn, the reclusive clockmaker, and finally, Vice Justice Catherine Myers. Perhaps Justice Hoon was covering up for his understudy. We have all the juicy details coming up, but before we discuss those murderous muses, let's delve into the mind of a killer by retracing their footsteps on that fateful day.
Welcome to Gallery Argenta. I'm Jamie, your jovial art museum information educator. Push my buttons and see how I respond. Abernathy's Bluff is the most inhospitable rock face on the island, luring countless mountaineers to their death every year. Whilst potentially deadly for the people that take part in the sport, it's supplied millions of pounds worth of revenue to Merlehaven in tourism. Better known as her alter ego, Miss Moonstruck, talented dancer Dominique Serron regularly performs her bewitching blend of ballet and burlesque at the Moonstruck Lounge. At one time set for stardom on the West End stage, Dominique's path took an unexpected turn due to a tragic death in the family, but London's loss soon became Merlehaven's gain. As the last remaining funeral director on the island, Lilith Rendell ferries Merlehaven souls to their final destination. Angel to the bereaved, she comforts those left behind, whilst pioneering carbon-neutral cremations and burials using compostable coffins. Otto and Pip are Merlehaven's most famous comedy duo, having secured Best Comedic Performance for 3 years running at the prestigious Golden Auk Awards. Pip also has his own solo career, which includes a best-selling children's book and a cartoon series based on the Pip is Hip universe. Professor Catherine Myers is Merlehaven's current Vice Justice, serving under Justice Hoon, and is directly responsible for maintaining criminal laws and rehabilitating offenders. She's also the mastermind behind Merlehaven Manor, the island's only penitentiary, allowing offenders to rehabilitate closer to home instead of being sent overseas. Sunday and Monday, Merlehaven's most remarkable twins, were already well known as the miracle test tube daughters of geneticists Goddard and Constance Finch. But they found fame in their own right on the tennis court, quickly becoming the world's youngest and most memorable doubles champions. Perfectionist surgeon turned clockmaker Xavier Hahn is Merlehaven's most in-demand artisan. He took a small hiatus when his mother died last year, and more recently after divorcing his wife Caroline. But his reclusiveness and rare output has made him more in demand than ever. Abernathy's Bluff is the most inhospitable rock face on the island, luring countless mountaineers to their death every year. Whilst potentially deadly for the people that take part in the sport, it's supplied millions of pounds worth of revenue to Merlehaven in tourism. The triumvirate were elected by the first settlers to help shape Merlehaven's future. The judge upholds the rule of law, the mayor oversees policy making, and the mage shelters all citizens together under one spiritual umbrella, regardless of their beliefs. The Henge is a rock formation that was allegedly home to the last ill-fated great auk before being consumed by the founding fissures. The distance and angle of each stone also correlates with the Fibonacci sequence, which spiritual people believe affords it a great focus of power. During an excavation of the Henge in 2011, a hive of secret passageways and rooms was found running all the way to the Aurora Woods and beyond. This giant crystal ball is one of the few artifacts recovered during the dig, and due to the ban on all paraphernalia of divination, is now safely homed at Gallery Argenta. Don't try to see anything in it. That would be illegal. Merlehaven's picture postcard lighthouse was built soon after sailors arrived on the island and was tended by lighthouse keeper Leon Knoll for an incredible 53 years. After Leon's retirement in 2010, the lighthouse stopped working, and any attempts to fix it have been in vain. Mordecai Gray appeared to have a strange fascination with the building, and it appears in several of his works. The fabled great auk was originally thought to be extinct when the last specimens were killed in 1844 on Eldey, off the coast of Iceland. But they reappeared in 1953 along with Merlehaven itself. Sadly, for the remaining auk, they were hunted to extinction again by the crab fishermen who settled here. The Tornado del Luna is Gray's depiction of a freak tornado that occurred in 1969, just after Apollo 11 touched down on the moon. The more superstitious inhabitants of Merlehaven thought it was a sign from Mother Earth that man should not be permitted to destroy the moon as it had her. Although the cause of the undulating hill's hypnotic rise and fall has yet to be found, geologists believe it's shaped by underground thermodynamics. Digging down has proved impossible, as the hill's rubber-like surface is impenetrable, and visitors who attempt the trip frequently experience blackouts and other disturbing side effects. Generally recognized as one of Mordecai Gray's more whimsical pieces, this painting depicts Marie's farm in 1975, when farmer Marie Abernathy claimed she woke up to find all her chickens were levitating, as if lifted by an invisible hand. Unsurprisingly, Marie's story was met with ridicule, with some blaming it on the work of a poultrygeist, while others called for an exorcist. Originally an unorganized burial ground for the first settlers, the plot was turned into the largest solitary graveyard on the island, with thousands of headstones honoring the dead. Only Merlehaven residents with pre-booked plots can be buried here now. During the freak fish storm of 1976, the first mayor of Merlehaven was hit on the head by Majesty, breaking his neck and ending his reign for good. Some scholars believe the fish storm was caused by a Concorde flight from England, whilst others point to a more sinister ceremony near the henge. Either way, Mayor Spence sleeps with the fishes now. Merlehaven is still a major fishing venue, and its shores offer plentiful supplies, enough to keep the whole island fed for years. The docks pictured here are built on the very same site the original settlers landed. The Baconian was founded in 1967 by Olivia Argenta, who believed Sir Francis Bacon was the true author of the works generally associated with Shakespeare. To this day, any play originally thought to be by Shakespeare can only be performed at the Baconian if it is credited to Sir Francis in the programme. This arresting dreamscape was the second painting in Gray's Dream Period. Mordecai never revealed what the painting was supposed to represent, and only spoke about it in one rare interview, where he claimed that he could still hear that infernal tick, tick, tick. Controversially, Some people say they can see pagan imagery in the piece.
I'm Higgins, and I stopped questioning why or how this place existed a long time ago. I've updated the recordings with the truth for your listening pleasure. Dominique Serrant was a rare triple threat. A dancer, singer, and actor whose talents burned so bright that she landed the lead role in a West End musical as a complete unknown. No longer would she be a nobody from a nowhere island. Dominique was destined for greatness, and she couldn't wait to leave her past behind. Or at least, that's what she thought. News of her dad's sudden illness forced Dominique to abandon her musical just 1 week before opening night. Furious, the director promised she'd never work on the West End stage again. Once back in Millhaven, Dominique did her best to nurse her ailing dad, but soon suffered the pain of losing him, alongside the death of her dreams. Rising from the ashes of grief like a corseted phoenix from the flames, Dominique found her calling, performing burlesque at a local bar. She set pulses racing with her daring act under the watchful eye of her boss, Leo McIntosh. But all was not well, as patrons of the Moonstruck Lounge suffered a string of mysterious thefts, with the perpetrator appearing to use Miss Moonstruck's show as a convenient distraction. After a preposterously short courtship, Dominique accepted a marriage proposal from dull and dependable English teacher Adam Taylor. But that love-blind fool couldn't satisfy her insatiable needs. Desperate to break out of her rut, Dominique flung herself into the arms of her boss, a move that was only slightly less reckless than attempting to extort money from Mordecai Gray. Adam dumped Dominique for cheating with Leo. Leo fired Dominique for stealing. Dominique blamed Mordecai for everything, especially for reneging on a deal that would have made her rich. But then, where did his diamond orc go? With love turned to hate, and the flames of passion well and truly stamped out, our tragic Dominique was left with nothing to cling to but an audition in Paris, and one final fragile shot at redemption. Did she really think Mordecai was behind it all? Dominique, the burlesque ballerina. Whilst it seemed like everything was against her, I think we all know Dominique only had herself to blame. Business took a turn for the worse after Lilith's parents died. She set about honoring their name by discrediting the Johnsons, her only competition on the island. After breaking into their mortuary and removing various body parts from the deceased, word spread like the plague, and soon Rendell's was the only undertaker in town again. Ever the entrepreneur, Lilith invested in partnerships to produce lab-grown meat from human DNA, and was working with Merlehaven's butcher to release a range of celebrity cuts. However, adding an option for customers to feast on their recently deceased was not going to go down well. Worn down by the stream of grieving bereaved, Lilith came up with an infallible plan to cheer customers up by spiking their drinks with tetrahydrocannabinol. It was a short-term fix, and Lilith wanted more, so she made a deal with Mordecai, who provided her with a cocktail that was unashamedly permanent. When Mordecai found out Lilith had been tucking into her guests, he threatened to spill her secrets unless she supplied him with bodies. So, under duress, she agreed. Mordecai reasoned he simply wanted to paint still life, but she suspected he had more sinister plans for the cadavers. How much further would Lilith go to protect them and her secrets? Lilith Rendell ate up everyone and everything that got in her way. If you knew her real secret, you'd be as good as dead. But on the bright side, she'd handle everything for you. Otto's parents lived a marriage of convenience, neither content nor alone. But as the years went by, Mr. Pipistrelle's indiscretions became more frequent and public, like the arguments that followed. A teenage Otto, sheltered in his room, and having too much time and imagination on his hands, created Pip, a best friend he could talk to whilst his parents' relationship self-destructed. Otto and Pip's comedy duets were an overnight success, bringing tours abroad and lonely nights on the road. Following in his father's footsteps, Otto drank too much and courted too many, which culminated in an overdosed and pregnant fan in his hotel room. Once Layla's story broke, Otto became a pariah, but Pip came out unscathed. After Layla, Otto vowed never to drink again and entered rehab for one last time. When he emerged, he found an inbox littered with job offers for Pip, but none for himself. Desperate for money, he pimped out Pip on his own, but companies used other voice actors to portray him. With Otto's personal legacy in ruins, he hit the stage again, but without alcohol or Pip to back him up. This time, the critics were not so kind. Her. He would fall in love with her, and she would fall in love with him, or at least appear to. A devout fan of his solitary stand-up show, she would marry him if he would give up Pip. And so Pip was sold to the highest bidder, Mordecai Grey. From that day onwards, Otto would never see a penny more from his puppet, and Mordecai would own his most treasured companion. Smitten with her, Otto struck a deal with Mordecai to paint a portrait of his fiancée, but profited from it without her knowledge. She would leave him after that, and Otto would never really know why, but he did know that Mordecai had taken everything that was dear to him. All he had left now was nothing but regret, remorse, and revenge. Otto Pipistrel, a drunken womanizer who became increasingly jealous of the puppet he'd created. A puppet that had outgrown its master and was pulling its own strings. Catherine's parents were killed when she was just 13. They'd gone out to buy Christmas wrapping paper, only to be shot multiple times in the post office by an armed robber who was never found. She studied law to seek ways to avenge her parents, and it almost worked. Catherine had too much power at her disposal as Vice Justice, and managed to rubber stamp her own Recreational Rehabilitation Act in 2017. This allowed Justice Hoon to decide what constituted a penitentiary on Merlehaven, and Catherine quickly offered her own Merlehaven Manor as such, allowing her to deal with criminals as she saw fit. Catherine was so proud of Merlehaven Manor that when she opened it up to the public, she only expected people to see how happy all the patients were. But one reporter, Kim Park, uncovered a different narrative, one of electrocution, starvation, sleep deprivation, and hypnosis. Not unexpectedly, Kim became the first overseas addition to the manor when she was arrested for littering. Since then, she has had nothing but praise for Catherine and her methods. Mordecai himself was incarcerated at Merlehaven Manor for painting a mural on Merlehaven's lighthouse. It wasn't really a mural, though, was it? Anyway, I digress. He served several weeks for criminal damage and was finally released once completely in Catherine's thrall. But her control was short-lived. After visiting the undulating hills, Grey returned a changed man with no memory of his time at the manor, or the hypnotic trigger words Catherine had implanted in him. Luxiris was formed by the founding triumvirate to protect themselves from the spirit world, but in doing so they created a group of powerful spiritualists they feared even more. So the Luxiris headed underground, and anonymity preserved their existence, but Mordecai was about to change all that. Free from Catherine's hypnotic control, Gray threatened to tell the world Professor Myers was High Priestess of the Luxiris cult, and that her prison rollout was just the beginning of her world domination plans. Vice Justice Catherine Myers, a narcissistic megalomaniac who thrives on controlling others. Fortunately, Mordechai managed to shake off her spell. Sunday and Monday's story began in a lab. Two babies, carried by two different mothers, generated from a single egg, the world's first human clones. Birthed in secret and growing up under the watchful eye of their parents and other geneticists, the twins developed a devoted and unshakable bond. Boosted by private lessons from world-class coaches and a genuine love of tennis, Sunday and Monday's natural talent quickly shone through. The twins dominated in every tournament, quickly rising up the ranks against older and more experienced players. The twins' ambitions were frustrated as Monday's unexplained health issues interfered more and more with her ability to play. Weakened and growing more sickly by the day, Monday encouraged her sister to compete in a singles tournament without her, while Sunday began to imagine what her career might look like without Monday by her side. Reeling from the death of her sister, Sunday uncovered the truth about the twins' true origins. That they were the last in a series of failed experiments by scientists masquerading as parents. Although they'd fled, she would consider forgiving them if they grew her a replacement sibling. However, she still believed Monday's death was all Mordechai's fault, despite her own backhander. Would killing him put her own demons to rest? Sunday and Monday Finch, spoiled brats whose names were almost as pretentious as they were. They thought they were so perfect, but they were born with fatal flaws. Always the perfectionist, Xavier's slow and steady hand killed more patients in surgery and paid out more fees in negligence than any other doctor in Merlehaven. Fortunately, Nurse Caroline, who was employed by his mother, collected enough evidence to have him struck off the medical register before he could do any more harm. Xavier turned to clockmaking after being outcast from surgery, and was taught his craft by the heavenly Kyoko, whom he had never had the guts to tell his true feelings to. Kyoko was last seen being driven to the docks by Nurse Caroline, and I think we all know how that trip ended. Rich and controlling, Xavier's mother had been paying Nurse Caroline to look after her son. And not just in maternal ways. It had been easy to manipulate his former years by telling him he had von Willebrand's disease and diabetes. But as her dementia kicked in, she saw him as a threat and paid her daughter-in-law to murder him. That didn't quite go to plan, though. Xavier killed his mother. Then Caroline tried to kill him. Sorry, she tried to self-defense him. Xavier didn't buy it, of course, so Caroline offered to take the blame for his mother's death to prove how much she loved him, as long as he'd cut her into the inheritance he'd receive if he wasn't implicated. That's how love works on Merlehaven. Miraculously cured of his illnesses, Xavier began to question the strength of Mordechai's power and their deal. His only conclusion could be that the most famous, most beloved artist of Merlehaven, Mordecai Grey, was the devil incarnate. He believed Mordecai killed one of the other muses with a haunted clock he'd made years before. But was that really the truth? Or was Xavier just seeing things again? Xavier Hahn hardly finished anything he started. His mother hated him, his wife tried to kill him, and like a smitten schoolboy, he fell in love with his teacher.
Well, she's the gallery owner, hence Gallery Argenta. I've never actually met her, but she sounds lovely on the phone. She's also very lenient when it comes to breaking even. We don't often make a profit. In fact, she's mainly concerned that I keep hiring people to stay here overnight. Must be really worried about the insurance or something. Gallery Argenta's been in the Argenta family for over 100 years. Originally it was used exclusively to show and sell the artwork from the family. But nowadays Miss Argenta opens it up to the public. I get to choose most of the exhibits myself. Well, I pick a handful and then she picks from those, but same difference. As far as I know, the Argentas were a family of jewelry makers. The paintings were added once it was open to the public. Actually, I'm not sure how many Argenta pieces we have anymore. Most of them were sold or returned. There was a display case somewhere with the Argenta work in, but, maybe it's gone? There is one octagonal hidden room. I don't know where it is, and I don't want to know. Allegedly, it was used for sacrifices when the place was owned by a cult leader some 100 years ago. Don't look into it. It's icky. Higgins said he was having strange dreams at the beginning. What type of dreams? I don't want to know. Just, if it starts to affect your work, then maybe see a doctor. I'm useless at these kind of things. How did you know about Higgins? Wait, did I tell you? Yeah, it was probably me. Higgins was the security guard for 6 months before you arrived. He was our 6th guard, actually. His address was 6 St. Catherine's Court, Maidstone. 666. I'm having an epiphany. I'll be right back. Higgins was, seeing things. Things that weren't there. Hallucinations. He'd often point in the middle of a wall and say there was a room behind it. I think it was probably the sledgehammer incident that got him fired. Oh, sorry, quit. Not fired. I've said too much. Miss Argenta did fire Higgins, then agreed to accept his resignation for his CV. On his last night, he started smashing through the corridors, looking for these hidden rooms that he expected to find. Mainly, he just found the grass outside. It caused a lot of damage. No, they don't. What you're talking about is more likely psychometry. I felt the same thing when I was working the night shift. I could pick up a painting and it would show me a memory of itself. Perhaps it's really strong in you, and you think that you can see it. Don't freak out. Stop touching the paintings. There is no restoration table. Miss Argenta is very particular about that. She doesn't want any modifications being made to any of the pieces. If you find any artwork that looks like it's been tampered with, you let me know, okay? I think you're probably dreaming. Have you caught yourself asleep during your shift? I won't say anything, but Miss Argenta would not be happy. Not that she comes in, ever. Get some rest. You'll be fine. Mordecai Gray is the artist who was murdered last year. It's the main exhibition at the moment. I think you've probably just seen that phrase somewhere around the gallery. Yes, very Mona Lisa.
Thank you for calling the TIPS hotline. TIPS hotline can reveal one of the innocent suspects. This is a paid-for service. Please hang up, insert payment, and redial. Have a nice day.
I'm sorry you're like this now, Mordecai. The hills have done things to you that can't be undone. The portal was perfect. And on the side of the lighthouse, you're so thoughtful. Let's tell people I'm your daughter, even though you're not a founding fisherman. The Starlings groomed witches. Still do. I was the last sacrifice, though. Do you know it rained fish after they murdered me? So it half worked. They killed Spence. We need the blood of 6 royals. There are no royals in Malhaven, Mordecai. You must paint them. Catherine is lost. She's become evil. Although there is something I want from her. She cannot be High Priestess. Do whatever you must. There can be no royals in the church. Lilith is pure of heart, but corrupt of soul. We need 6 of the freshly dead on Malhaven soil. Then they can be arranged. Xavier is trapped in a prison of his own making. He is controlled by his origami. Give the origami to Monday Finch. She'll die anyway, but this way she'll take it with her. I'll send Alejandra after Otto to get Pip back. You'll need to buy him. See that Dominique gets her money. She deserves to leave this place. I'll take care of Sunday's parents before their next iteration. The bodies, the blood, the royals. Then we save Malhaven by sending it back to where it came from.
Real Merlers call Abernathy's Bluff Lover's Muff because of all the broken hearts that leap from the precipice into the salty embrace of the sea below. A few people even get pushed. The triumvirate were 3 swindling fishermen who were so bad at sailing they got completely lost and ended up on Merlehaven. Their crew didn't have a say in whether they'd be elected or not, but they'd soon drawn up rules to ensure themselves of all the spoils and power. There are some checks and balances built in, though, as you can't have a 3-way autocracy. Everyone knows Henge is used by the Luxyrus cult as a summoning circle to bring forth whatever their latest fancy is. It was, however, created by a man-made explosion during the founding fishers' search for coal. You see them too, don't you? From what I can tell, the catacombs under the Henge served as a safe place for the witches of Merlehaven for years. The excavation in 2011 was paid for by the Argenta family. I suppose they'd moved their stuff out by then. Lighthouse keeper Leon Noel jumped from the lighthouse and died a year after he'd taken up residence there. It was his spirit that kept the place alive, and it was only set free in 2010 when his ex-wife died. He originally jumped because she'd left him, and when he could sense she was close to the end, he left Merlehaven forever to be at her side. Gray went to prison for that thing. If you sit along the coastline of Merlehaven on the 16th of April, at around 10:30 you will see an army of ghost orcs deployed to the beach. It's the anniversary of their extinction. They know what you did, and they're not happy about it. If you're lucky, you might be able to convince a helicopter pilot to land in some unmarked grassy knoll to pick you up. But since there's no airport on the island, the only way in or out is through this ungodly dock. Merlehaven is mostly surrounded by sharp, gangly underwater protuberances, and the dock is where fewest are found. But they still take out the odd ship or two. Let's not start on the Argentas, shall we? But here's some food for thought. Olivia Argenta bought the rights to the written works of Sir Francis Bacon in 1966. Coincidence? Most of Mordechai's dream works were created autonomically, channeling the will and the way of the heart of Merlehaven itself. The future is a message to the rest of the planet, showing a clock ticking in Mother Nature, superimposed with the rituals of humanity, depicted as a pentagram. It's a prediction of death by climate change. Nothing more, nothing less. It wasn't a freak tornado. Marcus J. McCleary, a famous coal miner who lasted 5 years in the depths, was disgruntled puzzled that people were saying the soil of the undulating hills couldn't be penetrated by anything. Using a giant mining drill, Marcus managed to dig a hole the size of a pencil tip. But it then erupted into a huge rip that spewed out the tornado before sealing itself up again. That rubber-like surface on the undulating hills is in fact the skin of the North Sea creature that we're currently standing on. Merlehaven isn't an island. It's a monstrous, godlike octopus that's taking a bath. They ate Majesty, you know. After saving Merlehaven from Mayor Spence, Majesty was spit-roasted by the Argenta family over a campfire at the Henge. Doesn't say that in the brochure, does it? It was actually Angel Abernathy, Marie's daughter, that caused all those chickens to levitate. Marie knew that too, because Angel had been trying to cast a scrying spell to find her lost basset hound, but she'd accidentally summoned a rather grumpy spirit instead. This wouldn't have been a problem had there not been so many witnesses, along with the triumvirate having just criminalized all forms of divination. The triumvirate tried to out-and-out ban burials decades ago, but that kicked off a revolution from grieving Merlers. So instead, they passed a law limiting the size of the burial ground and gave council aid to Merlers who cremated their relatives. If you don't fall into either of those categories, you're either buried at sea or fed to the undulating hills.
It was a cold and frosty morning on the 31st of October when Gray received a solitary telephone call that police traced back to a public phone box in the theater district. The call lasted for 44 seconds and appeared to be from one of Gray's portrait subjects. During the forensic sweep of his loft that night, police found a note in Gray's handwriting that read, "Unhappy. Destroyed portrait. Meet at lockup. 4 p.m. Why do they think the killer made the call? Because it gave them the opportunity to enter Mordechai's loft when they knew he would be absent, concealing themselves, waiting for their prey to return.
had some trouble at the lounge. Things going missing, you know. Watches, wallets. Leo's putting in some cameras, but hopefully it's nothing. I'd rather Justice Hoon didn't watch the videos. He has strict rules on decency, and I'm often very indecent. The key is to be desirable, but just out of reach. I can tell it's working when they can't keep their eyes off me. Especially Leo. It's fun. Even Adam sneaks in sometimes, though he claims he doesn't. He thinks I don't notice. Miss Moonstruck brings out a different side of me. She doesn't care if it's taboo. She just does what feels good. My mum left when I was 9, and my dad died last year. Black lung. So it's just me. Oh, and Adam, my fiancé. He teaches English.
Jenna owns Marigolds. In the theatre district, she does the best flowers. We're both dressing up for Halloween. She's gonna be a sunflower, and I'm thinking maybe a zombie or a cheerleader. I have a side hustle in a company that creates lab-grown meat. Cows and vegans are equally destroying the planet, in my opinion. What I'm doing is different. I'm definitely a foodie. Money was a bit tight when I was younger, and it instilled me with this kind of quick or hungry mentality.
It was the royal box, and Pip made some joke about upskirting.
That's illegal now.
What, invading people's privacy?
No, making jokes.
Most people think I'd like to move from Vice Justice to Chief Justice, but that's really not the case. My work at the manor is essential for the world. Argenta is a complete gem, isn't she? The Argentas and the Myers have been family friends for decades. They took me in after my parents were gone and paid for my tuition in London. There are a lot of journalists wanting to see what goes on at the manor. We've become famous. I'm arranging several open days. Perhaps you could come, Maudie, to say a few words?
I'm worried about you. She fainted in the theatre district the other day. I was fine. Everyone was super helpful. Yes, after they'd finished taking photos. It was just low blood sugar. I shouldn't have starved myself. I was saving room for Veroniki at Nora's Deli. It's my favourite. We go there all the time. Sorry, Mordecai, could I use your bathroom? It's okay, I just feel a bit sick. She'll be fine. Monday's always been a bit sensitive health-wise. Mother blames the surrogate. We don't have mobile phones. Father says they scramble your brains. Well, I just don't want one. We have a phone at home and there's one in town. Did you know it's the only public phone box on the island? They got rid of all the rest.
I live next to the theatre district, so it's quite quick to get here. I'd cycle, but where would I put my bike? Am I talking to you through Mordecai's memories? Or am I just a figment of your imagination? I live next to the theatre district, so it's quite quick to get here. I'd cycle, but where would I put my bike?
They're divorced. Don't know where my dad is. Screwing his way across the planet, I should imagine.
Like father, like son.
I got an injunction, so she can't come within 100 feet.
Happens a lot.
It's fans. You know, they get a bit, like, tunnel vision.
You slept with her
Yeah, but some people just can't let it go.
15 times.
It's not all her fault, but I mean, it does get to a certain point, and it's the only thing that you can do.
He's a dick.
Nancy was the best actor in the troupe. During a performance of The Umbrella Man, she slipped into a giant grandfather clock and disappeared forever. Literally, there was a false door and all that, but she was never seen again. Some people say she's still in that clock. What a thing to be famous for. I've got matinee tickets to an Inspector Calls on Halloween. You're not a theatre lover then, Mordechai? You could play Inspector Ghoul quite easily. All the questions, and yet nobody knows who you really are. I can get you an extra ticket if you like. Yes.
What were you doing in the theatre district on the morning of the 31st of October?
I had to pick some things up from Adams.
So, Mr. Taylor can vouch for you?
No, he wasn't there. He just left them outside.
Did you use the payphone?
Yes, but only to call a cab. My battery was dead.
I was in the phone booth, but I didn't make a call.
What were you doing?
I was putting up flyers.
For what? You're the only undertaker on the island.
For the meat business.
We didn't find anything in the booth.
Good. Means someone took it.
No, I didn't find anyone from there.
Can you prove it?
I was home the whole day.
Witnesses?
My couch. Oh, no, actually, yeah. No, my mother. She was cleaning the place the whole morning.
I don't recall. Sorry.
Have you ever used the phone box in the theatre district?
Yes.
On Halloween?
I said I don't remember. Why? Did anyone see me?
Is it you in this photo?
Yes.
It was taken the morning of Halloween. Who were you calling from the payphone?
A colleague of my parents.
Why didn't you use the phone at home?
I didn't want them to recognise the number. I thought they might not answer.
Why not?
It's a private matter. Can we just leave it at that?
I was going to make a call, but I didn't have any money on me.
We have an eyewitness who claims they saw you with the phone to your head.
Yes, that's what I do. I picked up the phone, started dialing, and then realised I didn't have any money.
Who were you going to call?
An old friend.
I see we haven't been burgled, so that's great. You didn't hear any scratching in the ceiling, did you? I keep putting traps and bait down, but I know they're there. Rats, probably. Too big for mice. You see any droppings, you let me know. They're fairly nocturnal, so your best place to spot them.
The Merlehaven Butterfly Park and Centre for Tourism is on the north coast of the island and is home to over 2,000 exotic butterflies from all over the world. Merlehaven has its own unique butterfly species too, a merlefly, which resembles a red admiral but with asymmetrical markings on its wings. On the 16th of April 1953, the crew of a fishing trawler first discovered Merlehaven Island. This day would come to be known as Merlehaven Day, the island's birthday, and every year it's celebrated with the arrival of the Auk Fair. One surprising fact in Merlehaven's natural history is the dramatic increase in starlings populating the island. Numbers of these iridescent birds have massively declined on the UK mainland, yet Merlehaven seems to attract more and more every day, leading to several spectacular and prophetic murmurations. What magic power does the island hold over these birds? Crystal balls were banned on Merlehaven in the mid-1970s, along with all paraphernalia of divination, and now only appear in painted form or behind secure enclosures for educational purposes. The triumvirate, who jointly agreed to the necessity of the new law, cited the protection of mental health as the primary reason. Gray's painting of the Aurora Woods is often compared to Edvard Munch's The Scream for the curvature they share. But Merlehaven residents have noticed another pattern. For them, the Aurora Woods is sister to the undulating hills, and they do share physical borders. Now a spectacle for tourists, Merlehaven's coal mines were operational for over 2 decades before being shut down. Mallow coal is exclusive to Merlehaven, a type of coal that is spongy to the touch and burns brighter and longer than hard coal. However, the life expectancy of a Mallow coal miner was around 2 years, and because of this, mining was made illegal in 1975.
Miss Argenta just called me to ask for one of the Grey portraits. Just pick any one of the 6 and leave it in reception. It's going away to be tested for authenticity, whatever that means. I think they all look hideous, so they're probably all authentic.
Something has changed. The Butterfly Park is incandescently beautiful with its water fountains and Art Nouveau sculptures, and the most wonderful place to relax. That is until you realize that the merle fly is actually carnivorous, like the Pheneseca tarquinius, and enjoys gnawing on its bedfellows. The drunken pirates that founded Merlehaven didn't even know what sea they were sailing in, let alone day of the week. According to geologists, they've fairly accurately concluded Merlehaven's actual birthday is the 1st of February, or the 28th of November, or the 9th of December. It's definitely one of those three. Starlings are Earth's spiritual guardians that often migrate to places where immense evil is brewing. In Merlehaven's case, they're gathering on the very creature that rose out of the ocean almost 70 years ago. What do they know that we don't? Banning all paraphernalia of divination was passed to stop the dead talking about what Mayor Spence had done to them. The Triumvirate did what it always does. It protected itself, leaving regular people at the mercy of the afterlife without any ability to communicate with it. The Aurora Woods really do scream. Allegedly, due to their strange molecular structure, they let out an unpleasant shrieking sound each time they are hit by an axe. I think it's more to do with all the drownings they've seen. Either way, I'd use a chainsaw. Merlehaven doesn't have coal. Mallow coal is basically the guts of the island. It is, like they said, very powerful and supernatural. But the island wasn't very happy having its guts removed, and soon found ways to kill the miners trying to disembowel it. The mines still ooze mallow coal from time to time, where the rock face is at its weakest.
In many murder cases, the killer inadvertently leaves microscopic evidence at the crime scene that is later used to apprehend them. The murder of Mordecai Gray was no exception. That Halloween, a forensics expert pulled hemp fibers from the soft furnishings and wooden floor of Mordecai's loft. They were presumed to have been left by the killer, and although their precise movements could not be tracked, the freshness of the hemp fibers meant they'd been deposited recently. Forensics tracked those fibers down to one place, and one place alone. Merlehaven's butterfly sanctuary. But what did it mean? Based on the decomposition of the trace evidence found, forensics believed that Gray's murderer had visited the butterfly sanctuary just a day or two before their deadly deed.
I called Adam to say I was running late. He didn't even question it. And then afterwards, he was waiting outside like he always does. Leo even apologized for keeping me. It must have been so obvious. So either Adam's stupid, or he doesn't care as much as I thought he did. I could feel Leo's eyes on me all night. So, later, when he was closing up, I went back out on stage and put on a private show just for him. Think of it as an investment in the arts. You're sponsoring a future star. The first award I win, I'll be sure to thank you.
Mrs. Marshall wanted to see her husband's body before it had been fully prepared. She begged to do it herself, so I left for a while. But then when I came back, the body had gone. Allegedly, she taxidermied him, stood him in her hallway. You've got a way of getting secrets out of people, haven't you, Mordechai? Mordechai. Mordechai. Chai. I infuse their drinks with cannabis. Makes them slightly less despondent. For a while.
future is lab-grown meat. If you can eat animal meat, you can eat lab meat. It's exactly the same. Just less murdery.
When I am in my Vice Justice robes, you will obey me. Or else. But I'm harmless as a butterfly, really.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Please thank Mr. Hahn for me as well. I'm sure Monday will love it. I don't for a second believe a clock can cure her, but I have to humour her. She gets upset if she thinks I'm making fun. Do I have to pay for it? We begged and begged Mother and Father for those kittens. But they couldn't just be any kittens. You see, we wanted them to be exactly like us, made exactly the same way. We thought it was that easy. Just wave a magic wand and poof, you've created life. Mother and Father are working at the Butterfly Sanctuary at the moment. They are injecting genetic material into cocoons to influence metamorphosis. You know, how many eye spots their wings develop. It's gripping stuff. Mostly it seems to be making them more appealing to spiders.
Come closer. Look into my eyes. Deep into my eyes. Listen to my voice. Sebori Malavik. Sebori Malavik. Nod if you understand. Miss Park has agreed to meet me at the lighthouse. The one that you defaced, remember? Just the three of us. You testify against her, and I will literally pay you in blood. Deal?
Why did you paint a doorway on the lighthouse? You're not Banksy. There's already a door on the lighthouse. It didn't need another one. I'm not much of a businessman, Mordechai. It takes me far too long to make a clock, and I charge far too little for it. Fortunately, Mother had some investments she'd kept hidden from me.
already dead, so I'm just recycling them, putting them to better use than just dropping them in the ground or throwing them in the furnace. Why do people have such a problem with it?
You've been a bit Jekyll and Hyde lately, Mordecai. Pleasant, then snide. I go to the butterfly sanctuary to calm my nerves. Perhaps you should too. You can tie yourself in knots if the lie becomes too elaborate. I simply said I'd left the syringe lying around and my mother injected herself. I just gave her the means.
Most things supernatural can be easily explained, and if they can't, it generally means they're not true. I can understand the appeal, though. Monday loves all that stuff. She was the one that insisted we buy that Ouija board. Though note, I was the one that had to sneak it through customs.
I'd say about half of all criminal cases involve a supernatural plea of one kind or another. Normally that would result in some kind of mental health assessment. But not here, in Merlehaven.
No. Yes.
Did you visit the butterfly park the day of the murder?
Briefly, yes.
And what were you doing there?
Looking at the butterflies.
thinking about the sheer force of will needed to become someone new. Why?
Just trying to establish a timeline.
Aren't we all?
I was there the day before Halloween. It's a popular resting place.
How do you stop yourself treading in the ashes?
I don't.
So if we tested the shoes you're wearing now...
They'd say I'd been to the butterfly park.
I've been in and out over the past few weeks. They're appealing our permit decision.
When was last time?
Day before Halloween? Whenever I turn up, they just make a big song and dance about having to clear up so many butterfly corpses.
Do you visit the butterfly sanctuary?
Not really. My parents used to work there, though.
Did you ever help them?
No, I'm a tennis player, not a geneticist.
When did you last go there?
I've never been there.
Never.
It's a butterfly sanctuary. It's for tourists and old people.
I'm a patron at the Butterfly Sanctuary. Obviously I go.
On Halloween?
No, not on Halloween. Actually, not for a few weeks. I am so behind on my work.
And what work is that again?
Making clocks. I'm a clockmaker.
You think the floors are a bit lumpy, right? Miss Argenta said this place was built on a hellmouth, and I'm pretty sure that's just an old movie reference, but I guess if you see any vampires, then stake 'em. They don't show a valid ticket. Be careful tonight. They've reopened Mordecai's murder case, and I'm expecting trouble. For you. So, stay safe.
Merlehaven welcomes people of all religions, and today, Merlehaven Chapel is at the heart of the community, hosting weddings, burials, and ceremonies that mark the quarter and cross-quarter moons. Mordecai frequented the chapel as a child, up until his mother died. A staple of popular folklore, the so-called Butcher of Merlehaven was the villain of many tales of missing pets, vanished children, and cannibalism. The island's modern-day butcher, however, takes a more cosmopolitan approach and has recently begun working with a lab that offers synthesized meat. Native to Merlehaven, the wild boar is generally harmless, though sometimes still hunted for sport. It's a frowned-upon activity that the triumvirate continuously consider banning, and Gray was against the hunt too. His painting aimed to bring more eyes onto their plight. Merlehaven Island was discovered in 1953 by crab fishermen who'd sailed too far out of the wash. The island was populated by many great auk, even though they had been declared extinct over 100 years before. These penguin-like creatures are still celebrated in Merlehaven's annual Auk Festival. The loop depicts the main road encircling Merlehaven that runs around the island and back again in the shape of a Mobius strip. Gray said that if you stand still for long enough on the loop, you'll meet everyone on the island. Saviour's bell was originally sounded to warn islanders of trouble at sea, but its ringing soon became synonymous with drownings instead. Gray's painting depicts Saviour's bell in action at Merlehaven docks, but it was dismantled in 1975 when it was acquired by Gallery Argenta. Despite its removal, some say they can still hear its doleful chimes on stormy nights.
Can you do me a favour? I've got someone interested in one of the Gray portraits. They want to buy one, but they're just not sure which one. They've asked me to choose, but I think they're all horrible. Can you pick one for me and hang it in reception? Just pick whichever one you fancy or hate the least. I'll be by later to pick it up.
Find the crystal ball. Merlehaven is a godless place, with a religion that tries to please all faiths, adopting pieces it fancies from all of them. Ironically, the chapel wasn't very welcoming at all, and was the site of hundreds of ritual executions that included anyone accused of witchcraft and anyone that spoke out against Mage Scrivener at the time. The Butcher of Merlehaven has always been one of the most respected inhabitants, with that title being passed down generationally and still unsullied. The current owners are the Milgrams. Their family crest motto is "Eat the Rich," which sounds pretty fair, considering the state of the world today. Saviour's Bell still gets rung by the unhappy spirits of Merlehaven, mostly witches who were drowned by the Triumvirate in the Aurora trials. Mayor Spence ordered the bell to be destroyed, and the Triumvirate passed a law banning the paraphernalia of divination. They'd hoped to cover up their sins by severing all ties with the spirit world. Didn't work, did it? Merlehaven is not an island, it's a creature. There is no bottom to Merlehaven. If you dive downwards, you will see more rubber-like skin that looks the same as that which is found on the undulating hills. There's no question that Merlehaven Island is part of a sentient creature. But the problem is, nobody knows what it wants. Every year, on the night before Halloween, the Triumvirate organizes a secret boar hunt as a peace tribute to the incoming wave of spirits. They will never ban boar hunting unless it looks like they might run out of boars. Our drunken crab-fishing forefathers couldn't build a road in a straight line, hence the loop.
scared of Pip. I can't tell him, but I thought it'd be our second kiss, and just as our lips were about to touch, she kind of recoiled, and she'd seen Pip in the box behind me. I mean, I know some people will get freaked out by puppets, but not her. She kind of made some religious cross motion and she fled, like Pip was the devil or something. I did a charity gig for the park, but I did not expect the butterflies to gang up on Pip.
I liked it.
They swarmed him and turned him into one giant butterfly.
It was consensual.
I did a charity gig for the park, but I did not expect the butterflies to gang up on Pip.
I liked it.
They swarmed him and turned him into one giant butterfly.
It was consensual.
Incapacitated and tied to a chair with climbing rope, Mordecai Gray would finally meet his end. Stabbed to death with an antique silver dagger. Finding the murder weapon is often a pivotal moment in any murder case, but sadly, not this time. The silver dagger had been dumped in an alley behind Sunvale Parade in a commercial wheelie bin. With no prints or trace evidence to go on, it was fortuitous that the only antiques dealer on Merlehaven, Ishmael Gauchi, remembered selling the piece just weeks before. But who did they sell it to? None other than Mordecai Gray. But was it really Mordecai? The transaction had been made with an envelope of cash, and the purchaser was wearing motorcycle leathers and a helmet, obscuring their identity. Ishmael stated that the buyer asked for the piece by its display case number, a very important point. Why? Because the dagger had only been available inside the store since the beginning of October, so the murderer or their accomplice must have visited the antiques dealer in that time.
It's the blood in the paintings, isn't it? Somehow, that's how you're doing it. Making us see and hear things that aren't there. You're trying to steal our souls. I got a love letter this morning from a civil court case from Layla's family. Do you have any idea what that's about? Wouldn't tell a soul, you said. Do you have an addiction, or do you just thrive on deceit?
Jenna does a lot of antiquing online, and then she trades it with a local shop. Nothing too big. She's only got a motorbike.
Do you have an addiction, or do you just thrive on deceit?
I think my dad brought something with him back from the mines. Something that's scratching in the walls. I'm never going to get off this rock. What do you mean you're donating it to the Orc Society? For free? What's 50% of nothing, Mordecai? What am I supposed to do now? Leo's fired me. I've got nothing. Please, Mordecai, don't screw me over.
Jenna does a lot of antiquing online, and then she trades it with a local shop. Nothing too big. She's only got a motorbike.
You put the diamond orc in my bag. Why would you do that? They emptied everything out when they accused me of stealing. No. Wait. No. Leo must have it. Leo must have it. This has better not be a joke, Mordecai. I'm going to check now. You stay here.
It's the blood in the paintings, isn't it? Somehow, that's how you're doing it. Making us see and hear things that aren't there. You're trying to steal our souls.
Monday Finch tells me you're not a good person, Mordy. Whatever could she mean? Electrotherapy, surgery, security. The manor is very expensive to run. You know, it's cheaper to feed patients than to starve them in isolation. But we do whatever is needed, whatever the cost.
The shrunken heads were Ecuadorian. I did some hunting out that way. Not heads, of course. I sold them to the antiques dealer here, just recently. I suppose it is a bit barbaric, but then so is taxidermy.
What do you mean they're in your lockup? An art installation of corpses? Are you mad?
Our program is being rolled out worldwide. Soon, there will be no more crime. People will still be free. But they'll also answer to me if needed.
Food for alibis. Jenna joins me for dinner quite a lot and she loves it. Loves it. You can't get what I'm serving anywhere else.
I killed them. I asked them for different wrapping paper. We hadn't run out. I killed my parents.
I suppose I could add some special mince to the meat buckets at the butcher's. Wait, why are you encouraging me, Mordecai?
You'd love that, wouldn't you?
Perhaps you could paint me again and sell that one instead. I could wear even less next time, whatever would make the most money.
Caroline said it was self-defense, but she'd stabbed me 3 times. Used a meat skewer as a weapon, of all things. Ishmael sells lots of antique weapons. She could have used something a little more classy.
Yes.
Have you been in the antique shop recently?
I've looked in the window, but I've never been inside. Their prices are a bit overblown.
You know Ishmael?
Is that the owner? No. I spoke to him on the phone once about selling some watches. He wasn't interested.
I've never been in that shop.
You've never been in the antique shop,
No. Nobody's died there yet.
Do you own a motorbike?
No. But I've got lots of clients that did.
Yeah, I've got a motorbike, so what?
Fits the description we've got.
What description? It's got 2 wheels. I've been doing work as a courier just to make ends meet.
For the antique store?
Sometimes.
Ever pick up a silver dagger?
I'm bored. I want a lawyer.
We have several of those.
You have several knives.
The manor. We have a display of them. They were used a lot in luxurious rituals.
Is this one yours?
Could be. I buy them for the collection whenever I see them.
Sometimes Ishmael has antique clocks for sale.
So, when was your last visit?
A few days ago. It's not a secret.
Anything catch your eye?
No.
An antique silver dagger, maybe?
Yes, I did ask to have a look at it because I assumed it was silver plated at the price he was asking for it. It wasn't.
What were you doing in the theatre district on the morning of the 31st of October?
I had to pick some things up from Adams.
So, Mr. Taylor can vouch for you?
No, he wasn't there. He just left them outside.
Did you use the payphone?
Yes, but only to call a cab. My battery was dead.
Did you visit the butterfly park the day of the murder?
Briefly, yes.
And what were you doing there?
Looking at the butterflies. Thinking about the sheer force of will needed to become someone new. Why?
Just trying to establish a timeline.
Aren't we all?
Have you been in the antique shop recently?
I've looked in the window, but I've never been inside. Their prices are a bit overblown.
You know Ishmael?
Is that the owner? No. I spoke to him on the phone once about selling some watches. He wasn't interested.
I was in the phone booth, but I didn't make a call.
What were you doing?
I was putting up flyers.
For what? You're the only undertaker on the island.
For the meat business.
We didn't find anything in the booth.
Good. Means someone took it. I was there the day before Halloween. It's a popular resting place.
How do you stop yourself treading in the ashes?
I don't.
So if we tested the shoes you're wearing now...
They'd say I'd been to the butterfly park. I've never been in that shop.
You've never been in the antique shop,
No. Nobody's died there yet.
Do you own a motorbike?
No. But I've got lots of clients that did.
No, I didn't find anyone from there.
Can you prove it?
I was home the whole day.
Witnesses?
My couch. Oh, no, actually, yeah. No, my mother. She was cleaning the place the whole morning. I'm, waiting to meet someone there.
So you've been to the butterfly park recently?
Yeah, I go there almost every day at the moment, in case she comes back. Yeah, I've got a motorbike, so what?
Fits the description we've got.
What description? It's got 2 wheels. I've been doing work as a courier just to make ends meet.
For the antique store?
Sometimes.
Ever pick up a silver dagger?
I'm bored. I want a lawyer.
I don't recall. Sorry.
Have you ever used the phone box in the theatre district?
Yes.
On Halloween?
I said I don't remember. Why? Did anyone see me? I've been in and out over the past few weeks. They're appealing our permit decision.
When was last time?
Day before Halloween? Whenever I turn up, they just make a big song and dance about having to clear up so many butterfly corpses. We have several of those.
You have several knives?
The manor. We have a display of them. They were used a lot in luxurious rituals.
Is this one yours?
Could be. I buy them for the collection whenever I see them.
Is it you in this photo?
Yes.
It was taken the morning of Halloween. Who were you calling from the payphone?
A colleague of my parents.
Why didn't you use the phone at home?
I didn't want them to recognise the number. I thought they might not answer.
Why not?
It's a private matter. Can we just leave it at that?
Do you visit the butterfly sanctuary?
Not really. My parents used to work there, though.
Did you ever help them?
No, I'm a tennis player, not a geneticist.
When did you last go there?
I've never been there.
Never?
It's a butterfly sanctuary. It's for tourists and old people.
I was going to make a call, but I didn't have any money on me.
We have an eyewitness who claims they saw you with the phone to your head.
Yes, that's what I do. I picked up the phone, started dialing, and then realised I didn't have any money.
Who were you going to call?
An old friend. I'm a patron at the Butterfly Sanctuary. Obviously I go.
On Halloween?
No, not on Halloween. Actually, not for a few weeks. I am so behind on my work.
And what work is that again?
Making clocks. I'm a clockmaker. Sometimes Ishmael has antique clocks for sale.
So, when was your last visit?
A few days ago. It's not a secret.
Anything catch your eye?
No.
An antique silver dagger, maybe?
Yes, I did ask to have a look at it because I assumed it was silver-plated at the price he was asking for it. It wasn't.
I don't recall. Sorry.
Have you ever used the phone box in the theatre district?
Yes.
On Halloween?
I said I don't remember. Why? Did anyone see me?
Yes.
I've been in and out over the past few weeks. They're appealing our permit decision.
When was last time?
Day before Halloween? Whenever I turn up, they just make a big song and dance about having to clear up so many butterfly corpses.
Yes.
We have several of those.
You have several knives.
The manor. We have a display of them. They were used a lot in luxurious rituals.
Is this one yours?
Could be. I buy them for the collection whenever I see them.
Yes.
Dead men can't talk, Mordy. Now, be a good boy and put your head back for me. That's it. That's it.
Can you believe they've solved Mordecai's murder? After all this time? You said it was them. Maybe you should get a promotion. Security guard? Nah, detective more like. Good job. I'll see you when you're next in.